Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakarishu Sarvadam Ganganapate Namaha. Shri Sadgurubhyo Namaha. Om Namah Shivaya. Shri Hanumate Namaha. Welcome to Nitya Satsang. Today is the 7th of May 2025. I want to offer my prostrations and Ananta Koti Namaskara Danvat Pranam. Prostrations to all the sages, to bhaktas, devotees, muktas, mumukshus, sadhakas throughout the world, to all the incarnations of God in the past, present, today, and yet to come, and to peace in the world, shanti in the world, given all the problems and wars and everything else that's going on. May God give everyone Sat Buddhi. With that prarthana, we are continuing to examine Shri Vivek Chudamani, verse number 77, and in connection, the Bhagavad Gita verses 62 and 63 of chapter 2. So to continue from yesterday, Dhyayato Vishayan Punsaha Sangasteshu Pajayate. This notion of Sangha I want to talk about, would like to explore this a bit further. If you remember, we have talked about the Antakarana before. If you have taken notes or keep the terminology very clear, Antakarana means the internal mechanism through which we are able to experience the external world. So there's Antakarana, which has 4 composite functions. We can say parts, but that's not actually as accurate as saying functions of the one instrument. Karana means instrument. So Anta means inner instrument, internal. Bahya Karana are these 5 sense organs we have. The eyes, the ears, the nose, touch, etc. Those 5 are bringing stimuli into the Antakarana. Right? Now, yesterday we were talking about how sages and rishis, they did mind scanning. They were students of the mind. This is what they are studying. They're studying Antakarana, which we can do also, which we should be doing. Every human being, every jivatma that has a human body, has the capacity to study, to probe, to understand the function, structure, the way the Antakarana is moving through the energies within it. And if we do that, we can reach very high stages of inner liberation, because the bondage is inside the Antakarana itself. Bondage of the jivatma towards the worldly experience, that is where the jivatma is bound inside Mahamaya. So let's go slowly. Let's be very clear. So just to be very clear, the Antakarana is made up of 4 composites, right? Which is what? Manas, Buddhi, Ahankar, and Chitta. Manas is what? Mind, what we consider to be our conscious mind. As it coordinates sense impressions, it is associated with Sankalpa and Vikalpa. You may have seen this in bhajans also, that is there. Sankalpa, Vikalpa ka nash kijiye, things like that. Sankalpa means my own will. I want to do this, I want to do that. We have our own will. That is called Sankalpa. And Vikalpa means doubt. Not sure, is it this way? Is it this way? Is it this way? This is called Vikalpa. So the mental function is very much caught inside sense experience, the worldly experience in the Jagrat Avastha. It's caught in there. Now, we want to be uncaught. To be uncaught, meaning unbound in the experience, would mean to leave the experience exactly where it needs to be ontologically. Like, for example, simple examples, we're having a meal. Let's just say you're having a small bottle of Mountain Dew or Diet Coke or something. Okay, it's an object, right? It's an object, and we're holding it, smelling it, touching it, whatever. That ontological leaving it alone means that we have the experience. The experience is at the level of the body, the mind. The experience is there, and leave it right there. After a certain amount of experience, good enough, leave it. And not to keep dwelling on that experience. What we tend to do is our mind dwells on that. And then by dwelling on it, there is the generation of the Sangha. So this Sangha means the contact, the coloring of the mind with, through the experience. Dhyayoto vishayan punsaha sangasteshu pajayate. That means that the Sangha is the coloring. Now, what does that mean? Let's say I'm drinking a Diet Coke with 2 lemons. Sometimes we go to these restaurants and we say, well, I want a Pepsi or a Diet Coke. I want 2 lemons, or I want this in there. I want this. I want with ice, no ice, this way. Whatever it is, all those kinds of things we want. When we order anything, we want based on the way we want to experience that. Okay, that is our ichha. That is the kind of experience we are wanting. We do this all the time, and in fact, that's how we live. We function that way. There's a purpose behind that also. That is not to be rejected. Why are we functioning that way? Why are we living that way? Because that kind of programming, that type of neurological processing is there for survival. It's because there are 3 prime directives neurologically with regards to the way the reward circuitry in the brain work. They are to survive, to seek pleasure, and to avoid pain. 3 prime directive. Prime directives means like that is, the brain functions based on these 3. That we want to seek pleasure, because why is that the seeking pleasure? Because that will promote reproduction, that will promote survival, that promotes living in this world. If we didn't enjoy the objects, why would we even eat anything? Why would we even see anything? You see, so there is a purpose behind the experience of enjoyment, which is called bhoga in Sanskrit. To seek enjoyment, to seek pleasure. It's a word pleasure is used in the English language, but the word is bhoga in the Sanskrit language. All right. So the 3 prime directives are to seek pleasure, to avoid pain. We have to protect. That's for protection. To keep the body protected, so that the pain, the physical pain, mental pain, all kinds of pain is avoided. Okay, that's the 2nd prime directive. And the 3rd prime directive is survival. It's just basic survival and reproduction. That's why the human species survives. Right now, this instinctual modality of the mind is absolutely necessary. If we don't have that, we wouldn't survive in this world the way the world is constructed. Because it is a hierarchical world based on, it's hierarchical in the sense that our survival is in the hierarchy of all the species. We dominate the entire planet. There wasn't a time like that at some point, but we do now because of our, because of our higher intelligence. That is why when we are seeking pleasure, when we are seeking survival, when we are seeking the sense experiences, they are very much the world that we live in, because of the brain, the way the brain actually is physiologically and anatomically structured. Okay, now having said this, what about this Antakarana? What about the Vedanta? So the rishis meditated on these points and they said, let's see if we can actually realize that that there is something even more than the Antakarana. Antakarana is a mechanism, it's a process. Yeah, the worldly process is going on. We are eating and we are, bodily functions are going on a day-to-day basis. Yes, okay, fine. That's all good and well. But then what? So what they decided to do, they said, we want to actually go beyond the limitations of the Antakarana, because it's an instrument. It seems like we're getting in that limitation. Can we rise above it? To rise above the mind, to rise above the buddhi, to rise above the ahankar, to rise above the chitta. Well, what does that mean? How do you rise above these 4? Right? Well, how would one rise above them? So each one of them has a function. To recognize their function, to recognize how they function, in which way, and to leave the function where it needs to be and not add to that function. So, for example, the mind has its own activity. It's controlling the body, it's controlling our voluntary action. Fine, it has a certain range of function. Leave it at that. But if we're adding more energy into that function, then there is the creation of the bondage, the sangha. Something simple as driving a car from point A to point B, going to the grocery store. Even something like that is a functional activity. It's Vyavarika Satyam. But if a person is getting angry, getting upset while driving the car, or there is some kind of fear, or whatever may be happening there's some other kind of additional thinking about that activity, then there is going to be more binding in that activity. So leave the activity within the Vyavarika Satyam at the functional range only, and then allow the mind to be open so it can contemplate on higher ideals, higher ideas. It can do a higher level of cognitive function, cognitive contemplation. So the trip to this grocery store, we're going there. But then the mind can be active in higher contemplation. It could be listening to a bhajan, or it could just be silent. It is just moving. The activity is moving the body. I mean, the body is moving through the activity. But when we are just in that range, that functional range, and not getting caught inside there, that is called Sakshi Bhav in Vedanta. So Sakshi Bhav means witnessing consciousness. Okay, I'm in this, doing this now. Let it be done, and then come back again. So come back again to what? Come back again to what? Well, come back again to the activity, to the experience we are wanting to have in life, the highest of goals. So come back again and again to the highest vritti. The word vritti means the thoughts and the emotions and the entire array of activity going on that is connecting in one way or another. So we can connect this vritti with higher consciousness, with Bhagavan, with greater ideals, greater ideas. Depends on which way the vritti goes. You see, so it has to all happen in a balanced way. So the antakarana gets purified, it gets steady, and this is how the antakarana itself resonates. It is brimming with divine knowledge, with sankalpa that are related to Paramatma, related to higher realization. You see, so I'll just use one example here, then we'll stop here. For example, if you just browse through Netflix or Hulu or something as an example, right, which we do all the time, most of the stuff that is on there, you will see it is within a very bound framework. If you try to see how much binding there is, bondage there is, the kind of experience there is, then it is very limited, restricted. It's the same stuff, raga, dvesha. Those experiences of Maya are just more exemplified there, as an example. To rise above that, you say this is there, but this is what is new in this. So one gets tired of it. Then the mumukshutvam comes about, that these things are the same going on. What's new in this? There's nothing new in it. It's the same thing that has been enhanced further. So when one sees that, realizes that, one retracts from many of those repetitive worldly experiences, and in doing so, there is then taking the japamala and setting the destination towards Paramatma. It is setting the destination, which most people don't do that. They might be doing some sadhana here and there. But if we set the destination, that's a big thing. But guess what? Staying on that path without deviating is even more difficult. You see, and without it becoming mechanical and old and those problems we talked about a few days back. We don't want that to happen either. So when we set a high destination, that kind of time, energy, effort has to go behind that. The higher the destination, the more focus of energy in that direction. The lower the destination, you don't need that much focus in that. And this is true in every aspect of life, right? With education it's true, with family life it's true, with occupation, with business, with everything. With everything we do, the higher the destination, the more time, energy, focus, concentration has to be in that direction. Then that destination will be reached. So what is the ultimate destination? That is Bhagavan Narayana. Deyo Narayano Hari, Bhagavan Krishna. That is the ultimate destination. You see, so the ultimate destination is Paramatma. There is nothing beyond that destination. And to reach that destination, these four, the Manas, Buddhi, Ahankar, and the Chitta, they are turned over at the feet of God. That's what we don't, what we don't do is this. We might do so many other things, but to actually turn all of it over, that is called Samarpan. That is called Purna Samarpan. In Gujarati, we would say it that way. It is 100% turning over the Antakarana at the feet of God. That the mind is given to the Lord. The Buddhi is having Nishay of the presence of God. You see, and the Viveka between the Atma and the Anatma, that is in the Buddhi. The Ahankar, which is identified that I am this body and I am this mental body and I am the Sukshma Sharir and Vasanas, is now changing its function that I am the Atma, I am Brahman, I am at the feet of Bhagavan. Ahankar changes its direction and function. And the Chitta, which is a repository of latent impressions, the Vasanas, which fuels the cycle of desire and rebirth, that entire Chitta is infused with divine knowledge and satsanga, and it is going to take all of that content and simply leave it alone and allow Bhagavan to come inside the Chitta, which we mentioned before. Bhagavan's ki pratishta antakaran mein karni. This is how all four of them are given over to Bhagavan, and when we do that, the last part, the last few words in the verse number 63, Buddhina Ashat Pranashyati, that is stopped. That whole sequence, we'll go back into it again later, is stopped. Vishayas are there, we're interacting with them, we're contacting them, but then after that other linkage that happens up to the point where the Buddhi is destroyed, that is stopped. We don't want the Buddhi to be destroyed because that's the one thing we have. We don't want the Antakaran to be damaged. We want the Antakaran to be purified and turned over at the feet of God on a day-to-day basis. The 9 forms of devotion, Navadha Bhakti is there, the Atma, Anatma Viveka is there, the Sadhan Chatushta is there. So many sadhanas are there. Bhagavat Nam is there, touching the feet of the Lord, the Murti of Bhagavan. There's lots and lots of sadhanas. They're beautiful, but if they are done, then the mind is more and more connected relationally with the Ishtadevata, with Bhagavan. So, just one final point here. Shankaracharya Ji is then, of course, talking about, this. There is a word here that is called Chidabhas. I know maybe we have not perhaps talked about it in that much detail. Chidabhas is reflected consciousness in the Antakarana. Chidabhas means what? That same Atma Tattva is reflecting itself inside the Antakarana. So when we are connecting with Bhagavan, with Paramatma, Bhagavan comes inside the Antakarana because that is the layer that we are usually doing our sadhana in. So Chidabhas means it is Brahman or pure consciousness, and it is through the Antakarana functioning within the Sukshma Sharira that becomes the locus where the Chitta reflects as the Jiva. The Antakarana, the Chitta, the Supreme Consciousness is reflected as Jivatma. You follow this point? So it's like if you have a pot of water and there's a sun. Let's say you have 10 pots of water and you have the sun. Each pot of water will show a reflection of the sun. So this is what Shankaracharya ji is saying, that who we are, who we think we are, the individualized person, the soul plus the bodies, the Sur Sukshma Karan, that is called Chidabhas. That is called reflected consciousness. And it is reflected as the Jivatma. I'm thinking, so that reflected consciousness has to recognize itself whose reflection it is. It is Brahman only. So this reflected consciousness assumes the attributes of the Antakarana, such as finitude, intentionality, and agency, even though pure consciousness itself is unaffected. So the reflected consciousness assumes that I am this person, I am Sachin, this is my mind, these are my thoughts, these are my feelings, this is all called reflected consciousness. It is called Chidabhas. Chidabhasa. These are all Vedanta terminologies. Very interesting. So we'll talk more about this tomorrow. I want to explain this further if I can. It is absolutely tremendous the way Shankaracharya ji has talked about this and how this can be understood. He has talked about cleansing this agnan of so move out of Chidabhas into the Chaitanyam itself through Vivek, Vairagya, Sham Adi Shat Sampatti and Mumukshutvam. Those 4 sadhanas that are shown in Vivek Chudamani, that is a way to realize that you are Brahman, not this Chidabhas, not this limited being. Right? So that is the purification process. There's a lot of amazing stuff that is there. And there's another concept here called Akhandakar. Akhandakar vritti. Akhandakara vritti means the vritti is completely in alignment with super consciousness, supreme consciousness. We'll talk about that further as we move along. Let's stop here for now. Om Divilingaya Nama, Urdhvalingaya Nama, Anandalingaya Nama, Dvadash Jyotirlingaya Namo Namaha, Om Aim Rim Klim Chamundaye Viche, Sarva Mangala Mangalle Shive, Sarvartha Sadike, Sharanye Trambake Gauri Narayani Namostate, Divilingaya Nama, Urdhvalingaya Nama, Anandalingaya Namaha, Om Dvadash Jyotirlingaya Namo Namaha, Om Trambakamisame Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrittar Mukshyamamritat. Om Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya. Om Aim Rim Klim Chamundaye Viche. Shri Radha Krishna Arpanamastu. Om Hrim Swaha.